Hello, my name is Tyrone West, and I'm a student at California Intercontinental University in the Business Management Doctorate Program, and this is my market research proposal, also known as the MRP. The agenda for this MRP is as follows: an overview of the problem, discussion of the objective and the target audience, the market and research techniques, existing data sources, sampling strategy and size, primary data collection and analysis, estimated timeline and cost, and lastly, ethical considerations. Overview of the problem starts with figuring out if a problem even exists. So, in my research proposal, the chief financial officer ran financial analysis and discovered that the business had been underperforming for the last few quarters. So that's how we determined that there was a problem. The next thing was determining what areas of research would we have to consider. So Company A was the company I used in my MRP. Company A was a clothing company and sales were declining. So we started figuring out, determining why sales were declining. And we determined that a lot of our customers were going online and purchasing clothes online rather than coming into storefronts. So that piqued the interest into research as into why consumers are choosing online vendors over storefronts. So the research objectives in this MRP is as followed. It consists of meetings involving regional managers and top-level executives that can make money decisions, um, developing questions pertaining to product modifications, delivery, and analysis of surveys, as well as redeployment discussions. The questions of concerns were, why are we losing customers to online vendors or other storefronts for that matter, but particularly online vendors? And interested parties are stakeholders such as consumers, investors, employees that directly communicate with customers because they have invaluable information that could definitely contribute to finding solutions to this problem. The main research objective is to foster collaboration and communication throughout all departments to kind of get a sense of what's going on and what customers are saying. So, study design methods of collecting information. There's various types of ways you can collect information from secondary data like internet, Google, articles, the web, Facebooks with social media saying. That's all forms of secondary data collection. Primary data collection like surveys, focus groups, in-depth interviews. There's all kind of ways of collecting information. But for this MRP, we're going to use kind of a combined approach. We're going to use databases from the company that contain demographic information and information such as name, address, email address, phone numbers, and we're going to use that to kind of target our population. And then we're going to develop surveys with questions that answer or respond to um, the question at hand, the problem at hand. You know, why are we losing business or money or business to online vendors? And we're going to develop an incentive program like a rewards, like a in-store bucks, $10 coupon, free item um, on presentation of a voucher or something for completing these surveys. Give consumers incentives to complete the surveys, increase the likelihood of respondents. Like stated earlier, there's many forms of secondary data sources, but for this MRP, the secondary data source that we're going to use is the databases within our own company. And we'll use some, and I think using some databases online to kind of determine what online vendors are offering and stuff like that might be useful as well. And like stated earlier, the sampling strategy and size is very important, and it should be random assignment, well, random selection. The population for which you should sample It should be technique. It should follow a technique that randomly selects the population to avoid biased results. And the larger the sample size, the more accurate the results, the finding. The smaller the sample size, the more poor the results. So you want to make sure your sample size is representative of the population, or at least a big enough sample size. And not everybody's going to respond, so you want to try to project more out there. That way, at least if everybody don't respond, you still get enough people responding that you incur accurate results. So in this MRP case, our population is going to be regional customers. We'll reach out to people within the customers within the database first, and hopefully get enough respondents back. If not, we'll reach out to you know more regional customers um, via white pages and collecting data on people in surrounding zip codes, and then sending mail out or something like that. For this MRP, the primary data is collected through surveys with closed-ended questions on them. At the end of this presentation, I'll provide an example of a survey instrument used for collecting data. And then it'll be analyzed. And, the surveys are going to have to be coded. Open-ended question surveys are coded differently than closed-ended ones, but in this case, it's a closed-ended survey, so it's going to have to be coded. They can usually be pre-coded to save time and money, and then they're going to run through a program where some software online, intelligent software, where it detects errors and try to cancel out that. That's a lengthy process, but it can be cut in half when you use modern technology for things like that instead of manually doing it. Um, and once the data is collected and analyzed, and the results are going to be in, and you can weigh it. Also, different bar graphs and line graphs and one-way frequency tables will be able to show percentages and stuff. So it will provide nice visualizations of the data collected and analyzed. So a market research project usually takes up to 7 weeks to complete. However, that's in consideration of a smaller project with about 30 in-depth interviews or 8 focus groups. Pretty simply put, surveys. Larger projects require more time, and with both of them, a lot of unforeseeable events can affect the time frame. So you can't really predict what might be in the future that might affect the time. But a smaller projects usually take about 7 weeks, and the timeline might um, follow. Week one would be the green light for the project, recruiting guideline, and the blueprint of the resources and personnel needed. Week 2 and 3 will bring the team together and put the identified parts into the working stage. Week 4 and 5 would be conducting the research. Week 6 would be analyzing the research, and week 7 would be presenting a research report. The price of research can climb very quickly. It can be an expensive endeavor because there's different things that cost money. The wages paid to the researchers, assistants, and other people part of the team, the incentives for respondents, the materials, the technician time, other factors not considered up front as well. Company A in this proposal is a smaller company, and a researcher could take on the job with just an assistant and complete it within 7 weeks. But there's a lot of moving parts still, and it's not too far fetched to price research, even this small, at about $75,000. So with almost every job or profession dealing with people, you have to consider the ethics involved. And ethical considerations or ethics are more like a blend of business and professional and personal values, and kind of guidelines to follow so that you don't injure anybody in the process of conducting business, and you stay as competent and ethical as possible. Outside of the research itself, but integrated into the character of the research, is this value system that just guides the way a person acts when it comes to others. Do I want to do this and cause minimal harm to somebody, or do I want to exploit this person for some kind of financial or personal gain? And a lot of times the only way to get good at being an ethical operator is by experience and facing these ethical situations in real life and having to decide and having to get good on how to respond quickly and ethically to them, and having strong boundaries, and and just being calm and knowing what the ethics are. So learning what the MRA identifies as the Code of Research Standards. One that really stand out to me is, and it falls under the responsibilities to clients and vendors, and it is the the maintaining confidential and identity of clients and research sponsors. I think that's extremely important because that's very sensitive information. People that you work with should be, um, it should be done in a very professional manner and a manner in which that things that you learn about that person or find out about that person or work with to or goals work towards with that person is done in a fashion where it stays between you and that person. It's not a bad idea to sign consent forms, to make it a habit of having people participants sign consent forms just in case information shall leak. You're covered when it comes to any legal ramifications. So that's pretty much my market research proposal, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And this is that example of the pre-coded closed-ended server instrument that I told you guys would be at the end of the slide. Again, thank you for listening.